That's our current temperature at 93.5, 1590 WAKR. And time to go to film school on a Friday morning, 14 minutes after 8 o'clock. And we're going to talk about one of my favorite movies from the 80s, actually. And I'm going to bring in Joe Fortunato, film study professor. As he takes us to film school, he can introduce it and take it from there. Good morning, Joe, and thanks for joining us again.
Good morning, Ray. Good morning, everybody. And today we're going to take a look at one of the most beloved romantic comedies ever, really, and certainly in the last 30 years or so, Moonstruck from 1987. It was it had a premiere in December of 1987. It was released wide in January of 1988. It was directed by the great Norman Jewison, who just lost earlier this year, and written by John Patrick Shanley. It stars, of course, Cher, Nicolas Cage, Vincent Gardenia, Olympia Dukakis, Danny Aiello. Great cast. 6 Oscar nominations. It had several wins. One for Best Actress was Cher, wearing her memorable Bob Mackie gown, for those who remember the Oscars that year. It won for Supporting Actress for Olympia Dukakis. It won for a Writing Oscar for John Patrick Shanley. And it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor for Vincent Gardenia, and Best Director for Norman Jewison. It was a critical and commercial success. It finished third in the U.S. box office that year, spending 20 consecutive weeks in the top 10, actually non-consecutive weeks, but 20 weeks in the top 10, and did very, very well that year. It's ranked number 8 on the American Film Institute's list of 10 greatest romantic comedies. Siskel and Ebert gave it 2 thumbs up on their show, and Siskel prophetically said he had hoped that John Patrick Shanley would win an Oscar for writing this movie, and he did. Norman Jewison, the director, considers this movie his favorite of all of the films he's directed, and he's directed a lot of great films. The movie line, the famous line from the movie, "Snap Out of It," was voted the 96th movie quote on the AFI's list out of 100 great movie quotes. And the original film title was going to be called The Bride and the Wolf, which is terrible. So they really did a much better job of coming up with Moonstruck, which I think is a great title. The screenwriter wrote the film with Sally Field in mind for the lead role, which, of course, ended up being played by Cher. And Cher didn't really have a lot of confidence in this movie. So between takes, she was kind of talking to her co-star Olympia Dukakis that this movie was going to be a dud, and she thought she was giving a bad performance. And like I said, she went on to win an Oscar and a Golden Globe for Best Actress. Nicolas Cage, who was a known commodity, but not a big star at the time, his screen test didn't impress the studio at all, and they wanted to go with somebody else to play the character of Ronnie, but Cher insisted that Cage was the one to play the role, even threatening to quit if he wasn't hired. And after a couple of days, the studio relented.
You know, Joe, when you look at the movie, kind of, and you go back to this movie, 87, a little bit of a controversial subject matter, right? The way they fall in love and everything, but they pulled it off so well with Cher and Nicolas Cage and the writing and the comedy, and it all comes together at the end. I just think it's so well written, this movie, Moonstruck.
It really is, and like I said, it's got an Oscar to show for it. And I just watched it this week, and I hadn't seen it in quite a while, and I was just really struck at how good it is. I was like, man, I mean, I remember loving the movie when it came out, and I was like, this is really good. And of course, I'm a little biased because I'm Italian, and it's certainly Italian-themed, great Italian family and Italian characters. Some of the controversy was the age discrepancy. You mentioned the controversy. And there's a lot of different weird age things here in the casting. Cher is 18 years older than Nicolas Cage. Olympia Dukakis is only 15 years older than her on-screen daughter, Cher. And Danny Aiello and Nick Cage, who play brothers, Aiello is 31 years older than Cage. So it almost shouldn't work, but it really does. John Mahoney, who's also in the film, revealed that he got such widespread attention from this film. This is probably what got him cast as the father in Frasier. So we can thank that. The opening, during a test audience screening of the film, for those who might remember, the opening title sequence is Dean Martin's "That's Amore," and it's lovely with the images of the moon and stuff. But in the original version of the film, the opening title track was the aria from La Boheme, the opera. And during the preview audience, there was a lot of negative audience reaction because many of them thought that they were lured into an art film, which I don't know what that says about the audience. Some other casting, we always like to talk casting. Anne Bancroft and Maureen Stapleton were considered for the role of Cher's mother that eventually went to Dukakis, but their fees were too expensive for the production budget. Sharp-eyed viewers might notice there's a scene where Cher is entering the bakery where Ronnie works, and there's two characters, older characters, Mr. and Mrs. Fagacci, and they are played by Charles and Catherine Scorsese. Yes, that is Scorsese. They are the parents of Martin Scorsese. And Catherine Scorsese, Martin's mother, has cameos in a lot of movies, but that's one where both of his parents had a little cameo in the movie.
Joe, Cher kind of got going in the world of acting with that movie Mask and such, but you mentioned it early on. She got the Best Actress award, putting her really on the map. Is this her best work? She's done a lot of great work, don't get me wrong, in front of the camera, but I go back to this movie here as her best.
Well, I probably would too, and I don't know if we're just being,
because we're Italian,
by the recent memory that we're just talking about the film. But she did good work in Silkwood, and she, there were smaller roles, but roles in Mamma Mia and things like that. Right. But I think it's pretty safe to say this is probably her signature film.
No doubt about it. There you go, Moonstruck. It's a good one. If you haven't seen it in a while, like Joe was saying, go back and give it a look this weekend. It is terrific. Moonstruck today as we go to film school with Joe Fortunato. Joe will do it again next Friday.
I look forward to it. See you then.